Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cinegy Air 15 webinar. I'm going to be talking in depth about Cinegy Air 15 and Air in general and the whole Cinegy concept. And then I'll be opening up Air 15 for demonstrations of the various amazing new things that are built into it. So many of you will be familiar with Air already, but you may not already be familiar with the new stuff. If I'm telling you stuff you already know, I beg your pardon, but I'm sure you will understand. This presentation will be available afterwards as a memory jogger. Then we'll make a PDF available of the slides, and in addition there will be a recording available for people who missed it, want to show it to their friends, came in late, whatever. And if you're watching the recording, hi. So let's talk about Cinegy Air 15. The basic idea behind it is it's a video server system that can be used for linear playout, SDI to IP encoding, and studio production. It can run on physical servers, in a virtual machine and in the cloud. And it can run quite capably standalone in any broadcast workflow, or you can tie it into other Cinegy products for even better versatility. So So to begin with, I'm going to be talking to you for a bit, going through every possible detail. And then after that, I'll be showing you some demos. This is how I always do it. So yeah, everybody should be comfortable with it. So to begin, I'll be first off talking about the concept of Cinegy Air 15 and what it's all about. Then I will go into the details of what makes Air 15 what it is. And then I will walk through all the pieces of Air 15 to show you which bit does what in the scheme. The concept, unlimited possibilities. The basic idea of Cinegy Air is, as it says here, it's a suite of software for managing video and audio playout in a broadcast environment, what we call software-defined television. And what's crucial about it is that it's designed for use with ordinary IT equipment, ordinary PCs, ordinary network switches, ordinary storage, no specialized hardware other than that which is necessary to interface to old style, old school baseband broadcasting, which we still do support, even though, as many people will know, we don't per se believe in it. It's specifically been optimized over the last few iterations. Things have been tightened up, things have been offloaded in order to make sure that you can do good quality professional broadcast playout on quite reasonable machinery. Again, those of us who are who remember earlier versions of Air will remember the fun and games that it used to be, attempting to get the a nice clean picture out when the video was eating up all of your CPU. Nowadays, the video hardly touches the CPU. It's routed through other parts of the system. And as a result, you don't need nearly as much of a machine to do good stuff with as you used to. It's designed on a client-server basis, as is the rest of the Cinegy suite, so that you can scale your system out as you need it. One client can manage any number of servers, and the client is decoupled and can run anywhere. So, and that works for Air, it works for capture, and for convert, and that's how we roll. So it makes it very straightforward to run 1, 4, 50 channels. Also, nowadays, people don't just run stuff on computers anymore. There is also the virtual world where you can cram a bunch of pretend computers into one big computer. And then there is the cloud where you get the same thing, only down the road and in a data center. We support these two, and again, the benefits of our optimization extend into that sphere as well. Easy installation, configuration, and updating. I have enjoyed the experience of visiting customers who say, we need to add a channel. and from installing Air to picture on screen takes a couple of minutes, and jaws hit the floor. We like that. It is easy to install. It is very straightforward to configure, and updating in place is almost always supported. So it's very, very easy to keep current as you need to. When new technologies come along, like SRT, like 8K, like the other stuff that's always coming, if you're in the Cinegy world, you don't need to buy any additional hardware. Maybe you might need to buy a PC or two, but no fancy equipment in order to get the benefit of these new technologies. So that's the concept behind Cinegy Air. It gives you a full set of tools to do anything you want in the broadcast video world on any kind of machinery, and very open, very flexible, unlimited possibilities. So the details in terms of what makes up the package, we have, and we will be beginning with the Cinegy Playout application. Playout actually has two functions here. One is as a video server for linear playout and production, and the other is as an encoder. It's all done with one single engine or service, as we will see later. And depending on your application, you simply configure the engine to do what it is that you want it to. The encode, as I said, that's a simple version of the engine which cannot be driven by an interface. It will simply take an input signal and it will output a different input signal. It will output a signal in the format that you want it to be in, whether that be IP or from IP going back to baseband, or pull in an RTP stream and output SRT, or whatever you want to do, any which way you like. The playout aspect, linear playout aspect of Air, is handled by the Air PRO interface, the control interface. This handles your playlist, allows you to switch between your inputs. You can preview what's coming. You can drive the whole system. It should be, so a couple of things to note here. The first is, once it's set up and running, you can switch the Air PRO interface off. It's going to be running quite happily by itself, because what Air PRO does is it loads up everything you need into the playout engine, and when that's done, it's just sitting there. So you don't have to have the Air interface open all the time. And as we shall be seeing, you don't actually even need the Air PRO interface to start and stop broadcasting, because nowadays you can use services to do the same thing, much more flexible. Studio 15, missing a pro there, typo, sorry about that, is the live production interface that takes those same video servers and allows you to hook those in with live camera inputs and graphics and pre-existing content for a magazine program or live program production. It gives you a very flexible interface that can be split between different people, different parts of the workflow. And it also hooks in, if you want it to Cinegy Archive, where it will then work as a newsroom control system, together with Archive and its associated prompter. So you can use it for news, but you can use it for anything else you like. Cinegy Titler has hit version 16 due to various internal reasons. But the Titler 16 is the Titler for Air 15, kind of confusing, but there we are. Titler has all sorts of great things going for it, including the possibility of taking multiple IP inputs, which you can specify in your Air engines. And these IP inputs can then be combined into branding templates to give you DVEs. If you've already got a machine that gives you DVEs, well, probably you don't need it so much. But if you're looking to replace it, you might be able to do that. And finally, there's Cinegy CG. CG is a simple tool that allows you to take your graphics template and put it straight into your live stream. This is very handy for things like sudden program changes, news flashes, anything like that. If you're actually going to air and you don't want to mess around in air control and put in a secondary event and so on, you can simply use CG to inject your branding template right into your live stream. And it's now been enhanced with a voiceover input, which will allow you to not only put a template in, but also bring an announcer in over a show if you need to. A very useful new feature. So these are the pieces that make up Air 15. If I go now into the Playout engine itself and go through some of the things that it will do. The first line was supposed to go on Cinegy Air PRO, but it still figures. We deliver with a playlist editor that hooks into Cinegy Titler. In Air itself, in Playout, all broadcast codecs and resolutions are supported up to 8K and 10-bit HDR. We handle on-the-fly scaling for both input and output. So if you are broadcasting in HD and someone sends you UHD content, we can handle that. That's not a problem. If, on the other hand, you want to put something out and you want to take it down to SD for output for whatever reason, then you can use it, pre-process the output signal and scale it down there as well. You don't need to do anything to the file itself. We'll take care of all of that for you. We have an intelligent proxy cache system, which will take your content from your network storage according to when it's needed, and it will load it into a cache disk placed on your Playout server, and it will be played out of that cache. Now, this is obviously very good for continuity of operations, as any network link is a possible point of failure. So it ensures that you can set yourself up a cache that will run even if your network storage falls down. Since, for the sake of demonstration, you can get 40 hours of XDCAM HD onto a 1 terabyte disk. That gives you the idea of how much cache time you can have available to be running your system while your storage admins sort out whatever the problem was, or your network guys or whatever. We support secondary hardware through GPI, RS-232, network connections, and now via DTMF, something that's a little bit historical, but it's still in use out there. We've been asked for it, so it's built in there now. So if people are using DTMF as their trigger for advertising, that's now built into Air. So we can handle, as I've already mentioned, multiple IP streams into the system. And we also have support for NDI and for SRT, and there'll be more about SRT coming. Anybody that's listened to any of our webinars or any of my presentations over the last few months will know that I'm very up on SRT, and I love talking about it. Subtitle support is now built in. Teletext. Those of you who are familiar with Air and have sharp eyes will remember that we had an OP47 button in Air. We've had that now for a few iterations. OP47 is a subset of video text subtitling that was in use in Australia and was developed for Australian broadcasters. We've now moved that forward to full support of video text subtitling. This is again something that we've been asked about for a long time. So it's a complete implementation. So whereas before, if you were running regular teletext and you tick that OP47 button, it probably wouldn't do much for you. Now you have much more control. DVB bitmaps will be coming down the line, but teletext is now built into the Playout engine. It can be driven from a traffic system. This is not a not inconsiderable advantage, since there are many people out there who use schedulers and these massive traffic systems with CRM and ERP and all sorts of other stuff built into them. All we need is an output from that scheduler, which has all the necessary information about start and stop times and so on and so forth, and we can connect Air to that, and you can run your Air straight from your scheduler. You will have to talk to us to make that happen, because all schedulers have slightly different ways of doing things. Although you can also do stuff with CSVs if you are of the adventurous kind. All that information is visible on our GitHub for those who are familiar with it. Full audio control, so including license to Dolby, including Dolby E, and including loudness management now, as this is something that has become mandated by governments all over the world. We figured the best thing to do there was go to people who know this stuff, so we use Linear Acoustics as loudness solution, but it's fully integrated into Air and controllable from Air, and you simply install the plugin, configure it to the loudness curve that you want, and that's it. It will handle your output for you. I had the pleasure of watching this being done at one of our customers a few months ago when I was back in the days when you could do customer visits, and a German audio processor was ceremoniously removed from a rack and discarded because it was no longer needed. So that's one thing that that this particular feature is useful for. As with many of our features, it is possible to gradually replace hardware solutions with software stuff. We have now an audio only input. This can be taken straightforwardly as an input signal, so that you can program it like any other live input stream. You can also trigger it in secondary events as part of audio ducking to allow voiceover insertion, etc., etc. So audio only into Air. We've also had some inquiries in the past from people that are interested in using our scheduling technology in radio, even though there are radio solutions. This is something that will make Air usable in a radio environment or a combined environment with both radio and television signals. For the United States, which is of limited interest to this current group, I understand, we have EAS support built in. Then running as an application or a service. This actually came in with Air 14. And essentially what it permits is it permits you to switch the engines over from running as applications into running as services. So what's the use of that? Well, in the first instance, it's a security issue. It used to be possible. Without getting too long into it, it wasn't for a bit, and it is again. Running as a service means that you can get into a situation where you can actually run broadcasts without actually using an interface at all. We have a system that will allow you to spin up engines from scripts, load playlists into those engines with everything that you need in the in that playlist, your secondary events and everything, and just let it roll. Or if you're in an environment where you are broadcasting a load of channels, it might be useful if you're just doing pass through and you're not actually doing anything else. You could probably set a channel to run through like this, because again, it will bring down your system resources. I'll show you how that works in a little bit when I get into the demo. And then finally, if there's one thing people have been asking us about ever since I've been working with Cinegy, and that's, oh wow, does it run in a web browser? Well, the answer to that is no. And the answer to that will always be no, because Air Control does a whole bunch of things that we could simply never do in a browser. However, there would be a set of scenarios, for example, as I just mentioned, where you're running Air as a service, or maybe you just need to look at what's going on in the system and you don't want to spin up Air Control, or maybe you're somewhere else completely and Air Control isn't practical and you haven't got a VLAN. So whatever the reason, you can now pop up a web page with Air in it. And I'll be showing you that a little bit later on as well. So that's everything that's in the Playout box for as far as linear Playout goes. As far as video server type, gallery type stuff goes, we have, as I say, the Studio Pro interface that's delivered with it to make for program production, etc. It combines video and audio. The Pro combines video, audio, and graphics, and you can then deliver via the Playout engine video to studio monitors to be behind your talking people. You can use it standalone, simply have files and signals and graphics set up, and that's it. Or you can integrate it with Cinegy Archive, and then you have a full-scale production environment with an editor and a whole bunch of other great things as well. If you do integrate it with Archive, then it's also a newsroom control system, and you can make news programs with it. And we have a prompter, and we have RSS feeds from your news agencies, etc., etc. So the video server aspect of it is a key part of it. And the final part of it is Cinegy Encode. We used to have a thing called Cinegy Gateway, and it was kind of a hardware-y thing that would read an SDI card and convert it to a signal to an RTP stream and stuff. But this has been, wow, it must be 10 years old now. The requirement never went away, but in our great course of doing things more sensibly, the function was transferred from a standalone application into a function of the Air engine, which was doing it anyway. So this gives you then Cinegy Encode. Encode costs a whole bunch less than Air. If you buy an Encode license, the functionality is in Air anyway. But if you only want to do twisting from SDI to IP or vice versa, then Cinegy Encode will do the job for you, and I'll be showing you how that works. Specifically, another thing that's very important with Encode is the possibility of outputting SRT. Since this is the flavor of the month, and yes, I'm back on the SRT wagon. Since SRT is becoming more and more popular, in order to integrate it into your system, all you ever really need is a PC with an SDI card in it and Cinegy Encode. And your baseband will come in and lovely SRT will come out, and then you can do all that good stuff with it. Obviously, RTP and UDP are in there too, and NDI. So it's very simple, straightforward. Your video signal comes in as version A, goes out as version B. Now we have the Air Pro interface itself, playout control and management. We have a playlist structure that supports programs, blocks, and items. This means that you can build a nice flexible playlist where, for example, your advertising blocks are handled differently from your programming blocks. Each block can contain multiple items. Each program can contain multiple blocks. The labels of these various elements are available as variables that can be then pulled into your branding system. Drag and drop to load a playlist, dead simple. It's also nice if you use a more structured thing, but that's the easiest way to get things rolling. Start the engine and drag and drop stuff into the playlist, and away it goes. You have a full control of the playout engine, so including the possibility of bypassing it and of feeding black through it. I say complete, the only thing you can't do is stop it, because why would you stop a playout engine? Exactly. So other than that, any aspect of the engine can be controlled from the control interface. The secondary events grid grows and grows in functionality. Latest possibilities allow you to have secondary events grouped into favorites. In Air 15, these favorites then become transferable across channels or lockable to a single channel. Use your secondary events for graphics triggers, for cross points, for subtitles, whatever you like. Obviously, there is Cinegy Archive integration to the extent that in Archive, you can pull stuff directly from a timeline that you've been editing and whip it straight into Air. So zero rendering time and very, very tight production workflow capabilities there. This is also the secret sauce behind our news solution. The interface is customizable. You can move bits around. You can spread it across 2 screens if that's what you want. There is also optional access control for those environments where there might be well, there might be a requirement that only authorized people can do stuff, and in most professional environments that's kind of a requirement. You can set a password for starting air control, so that only people who have the password can run air control, and you won't get people hopping on there and playing around with the system that they're not supposed to. We have a color-coded content labeling option now for easy playlist administration. You can define color coding completely to your own requirements, but this will then be included in the playlist and visible. So it for playout management, it's a very useful thing to be had, and not exactly demoable, but in Air 15 is a means of ensuring that playlist items only go to a certain channel. Now, clearly, this makes a great deal of sense, particularly if you are in a multi-playout environment where maybe not all of your output is suitable for all of your audience, to put it that way. It is possible to set items so that if there is an attempt to put them into the wrong channel, they won't, basically. This, as I say, I can't really show it, but it's a cool thing. So you can be absolutely sure that unsuitable content or non-permitted content doesn't suddenly find its way onto your children's channel. So again, a few words about Studio Pro. Can be configured to all production roles so that you can set up. In fact, although it's one package, it can be broken up into different pieces, and these different pieces are assigned to different people, so that you can have a graphics interface, a video interface, etc., etc. You have director's overview, and you can basically spread out all of your control of your video servers in exactly the way that you need to do it. As I said before, you can combine video, audio, and graphics content into items that can then be queued and played by hand. Designed for news production, but not limited to it. Drive studio monitors, we've had all of this, you know. And finally, Cinegy Archive for production. Let's move straight on to Titler. Titler, graphics engine and editor. It will use any Windows font that's installed on both the client and the server, nota bene, both on the client and the server. If you do a lovely graphic with a font that's only on the client, the server will do a font substitution on you, and this may not be welcome. So you want to make sure your fonts are installed at both ends. But if it's a Windows font, it will work. If it's a more complicated font with non-Roman glyphs, then you may need to go to Unicode in order to get proper rendering, but it's still pretty much any Windows font. You can have text, images, videos, live streams, audios, and so on. You can have variables and macros that do stuff. You have a full set of timeline automation. You can basically timeline automate pretty much anything, and also you can set a variable associated with that. Then there is also loop triggering, which can be done in a variety of different ways. Loop triggers can be set inside the templates and also operated from outside the templates directly from air control, for instance, or from Cinegy CG. I mentioned before DVE effects. I'll be talking about whether I'll be able to show it or not is interesting, because that's something that is likely to cane my computer rather more than I want it to. But I can show you the principle of it. The masking I never really knew anything, because I'm not a video graphics guy, never really knew anything about masking until I saw a master of the art do it and use it, integrating it into some stuff he was doing, and then it all made sense. Our masking is a very, very powerful thing, and very good for creating nice, clean branding templates. Gradients, outlining, drop shadows, make it all look pretty. Instant movie subtitling. This was quite fun. I visited a customer, and this customer was in the habit of broadcasting movies, and he had to broadcast the movies with subtitles, and he would get a subtitle text file, and he would put the subtitles in one by one in Adobe Premiere. And I thought, man, I wish I had that much time. Oh, but so when I was there, I said, tell you what, let me show you this. And I pulled up a type template and I dropped an SRT file into it, and then we put that into Air, and lo and behold, all his subtitles were in. The guy was delighted, absolutely delighted. So yeah, so you can use simply for burned in subtitling, you can simply take an SRT file and you can park it in a Titler template, load that template together with your movie, and your subtitles are there. It's the work of seconds. And yeah, templates can be run as secondary events or can be run directly from Cinegy CG, as already mentioned. Cinegy CG, there's not much to say here, other than that the version that I'm running on my PC is misbehaving, so demos of that will be limited. But this is one of the hazards when you're running with advanced software. I am running the beta of Air 15 here, and I'm sure I will find out what the problem was later. But as of right now, I can't use CG, but I can talk about it. Gives you 10 layers of templates that you can plop into your signal. You can brand a live stream that's coming in, put your dog on it or your bug. You can use it for emergency messaging. It's very simple and straightforward. See, it's like a caption generator, only using proper, clean, nice graphics. So the key technologies that go into making Cinegy Air what it is, there are three that I think are specifically of note. The first one is Daniel 2. Daniel 2 is a marvel of the modern age. It's a video codec that can handle video up to 64K. And I'm thinking 64K, come on, you know. But 20 years ago, most of us were still watching SD. Who knows what will come. Daniel 2 goes up to 64K, 16-bit color, 4444 color space, insanity. But obviously, if it does all of that, then it does all the other stuff so much easier. It's extremely quick. In the interest of honesty, the price of that is high bandwidth and big files, but in a lot of environments, that's less important. It will, as it says, it will encode 8K at hundreds of FPS and UHD and HD at thousands of FPS. And it's also available as a Premiere plugin. For those of you out there who have interests outside broadcast, but who have other customers in other aspects of imaging, it's very well worth bearing the Daniel codec in mind as a means of handling any situation where you have large quantities of high resolution content, because it really makes it much, much easier to use. And the Premiere plugin is something, again, maybe you're trying to get people interested in Cinegy. If you have a customer that might be interested, but he's got people using Premiere, if they get Daniel 2 in, and they're using it with Premiere, that will give them a flavor of what our software can do. It makes a good door opener. Excuse me for 1 second while I cough. Sorry about that. So Daniel 2, by all means, whip over and have a look at the daniel2.com website. Bunch of interesting stuff on there. Then SRT. Yes, as I say, I like SRT because it does all sorts of great things. The SRT Alliance, essentially the idea behind it was that the way that video was broadcast over networks has its roots going back 30 years, and a lot of stuff has happened in the meantime, including some big work done about 15 or more years ago in Chicago on how you move large amounts of data, which were never envisaged in the original specifications. So since video signals are, by very definition, large amounts of data, so these clever chaps got into the idea of building that capability into the existing broadcast protocols, and that's where SIT comes from. It's as I put it here, 21st century developments in high-speed network data transfer on top of the already existing well-documented video protocols. It allows you to run to bring Wi-Fi into your broadcast infrastructure if you want, because you can quite happily run broadcast video over Wi-Fi, something which with RTP simply doesn't work. or UDP, or doesn't work nearly as well. And there's all sorts of other stuff that you can do with it, including we're using it actually inside Air, and I'll be showing you how that works a little bit later on as well. But it's for contributions, for delivery, for a whole bunch of different things. SRT is a great thing, and the SRT Alliance is the bunch of organizations that are supporting it. We got some very big friends in there. We got your Microsofts and your Ciscos and all those guys. We signed on early. We put our own little bit into it, and well, it's becoming integral now to Cinegy, to the point that within maybe 1 or 2 months I'll stop talking so much about it. But I don't think so. The final technology that's key to the way that we work is shared RAM. If all you're interested in is straightforward linear playout, shared RAM's not really going to do that much for you. It's only when you extend your Cinegy estate into capture, or if you want to monitor using multi-viewer, then you can use shared RAM for it. As it says here, any already encoded video can be used in multi-view and capture without any additional encoding overhead. It says get monitoring and capture for free. There's a star on that because, you know, that's free as in speech, not free as in beer. But what it does mean is that you have that ready rendered video that you can be multi-viewing using in the multi-viewer. You're seeing exactly what's going out on your Air engine, because you're seeing exactly the video that's going out on your Air engine. No re-encoding, therefore no extra heavy lifting, and by the same token you can feed that signal also into capture and be recording it for free. If you're building a system that requires compliance recording, we used to use a Windows MPEG recorder built into Air, but it had a couple of problems. If you do want to do compliance recording nowadays, you do it with our Cinegy Capture product. If you do it in combination with shared RAM, then it'll just tick over away there, and you really won't have to worry about any extra processing overhead. So the magic question that we get asked a lot, server requirements. So just to give you some examples nowadays of how you can run television on reasonably priced hardware. I've got 2 examples that I'm using through physical, virtual, and cloud, and that is 1 channel HD, 4 channels of HD. Obviously, if you want more or less than that, then yeah, then we need to talk about how we want to do it. As we all already know, if you're working in SD, you're still dependent on the CPU, but a modern 4-core CPU will be able to handle a single SD channel standing on its head, so it's much less of an issue than it used to be. For an HD channel, one single i7 4-core, or a Xeon of the same type, 2.4 gigahertz or faster, together with a 1650 GPU, cost you $150. 2 1 gig NICs and 2 500 gigabyte SSDs. 2 1 gig NICs because you might want to use RTP, and if you don't have the extra NIC, it's not so easy. SRT doesn't need that extra NIC because you can go out over the 1 interface, but our standard Air configuration allows for 2 NICs so that you have RTP available if you want it. And 2 500 gigs, you can make them bigger if you want. One of them is for the system, and the other one is for the aforementioned proxy caching, which requires its own dedicated disk on its own dedicated bus, but in modern PC architecture, that really isn't any kind of a problem. If you want to go to 4, I have seen work very successfully 2 Intel Silver 4114 GPUs. The P620 from NVIDIA will handle all of the offloading very nicely. So it will play you out your 4 channels nice and clean. Again, 2 gig, 2 times 1 gig next, 2 times 500 gig SSDs. I forgot to put the memory in there. Call it 32 for the first one, 96 for the second one, because the silvers take their memory in 3s and not 2s. But this is an examples of what kind of a physical server you would want to run 1 channel and 4 channels on. To go for virtual machines, we don't care what hypervisor it is. We simply require GPU availability, and all of those offer that now in a variety of different ways. So for 1 channel there, you provision yourself up a 4-core CPU, 32 gigs of RAM, pass through NVIDIA graphics. You can either use a Quadro card, you can use a Tesla, Grid, whatever. Doesn't have to be a Quadro, but you will need some pass-through NVIDIA capability. Then you want 2 virtual NICs for the same reasons you want 2 physical ones. And you will, again, likely be pulling in content from separate storage, so you'll want a cache disk. For going to 4 channels, bump it up to 8 cores, 64 gigs of RAM. We have a successful programs going out here. We have a customer that is running with exactly that. 8-core CPU, 64 gigs of RAM for 4 HD channels with branding. So we know that that works. Again, 2 1 gig NICs, 2 virtual disks, and pass through NVIDIA graphics of whatever type there are. Finally, to have bring in the cloud instance. Now, big YMMV, as our American cousins will say, your mileage may vary. You need your depending on where you are in the world, depending on what exactly you want to do. There is such a smorgasbord of things available. And the pricing here is extremely rough, just basically a snapshot. So if we take a look at these then, first off, Amazon, Azure, Google, we can work with all of them. All of them provide adequate performance hardware layers and NVIDIA graphics capabilities. If you take an Amazon GD4N X large, that is an 84 US dollar cents per hour machine. The rough equivalent is the NC6 from Microsoft. This has 6 cores where the 4GN has 4, but since our main thrust is offload, that's not really any kind of a big deal, slightly cheaper. Interestingly then, Google also with GPU, you're seeing that the pricing here is roughly aligned. These guys, no, I don't think anybody's out trying to cut anybody else on the 1 HD channel. 4 HD channels, you would move up to the 4X large. As you can see, the 4X large costs about 3 times or less than 3 times what the X large costs. So you're seeing savings at scale there already. The Azure NC12 is the next step up, a little bit more expensive, but again, you're getting the additional processors there. And then the Google, it's weird, I've checked this like 4 times, but configuring up a system that would run 4 of our channels came to like well, 2/3 of what the other ones cost. Again, your mileage may vary. I am not a cloud expert, so it could well be that I got it wrong. But whichever way you slice it, you are looking at less than $1 American per channel for the computer time to run a single channel, and certainly less than $3 American for 4 channels. So these are based on the Western Europe price list, and it doesn't include the data transfer charges, which that's something that you would need to look at, because putting stuff in there doesn't cost you anything, but getting stuff out of the cloud there's basically a taximeter on it, and you will need to be sure about that particular aspect of it. I saw that as out of scope because, well, obviously, but so here we see for physical, for virtual, and for cloud, we have the server possibilities here. Hardware supported, for example, Arja, Blackmagic Design, Deltacast DVS for your baseband and pseudo baseband inputs. C-level and only C-level for GPI, because there's no need to use anything else. It's ubiquitous, it's proven, and we support it. So we support the plug-in cards and the USB interfaces, and so C-level. SDI routers, we have Nevion, Evertz, Harris, Utah Scientific, Blackmagic Design. We actually have the list is bigger than this, but it should also be noted that many routers speak the same protocol. If your router should not happen to be on our list, you can check with us to see if it's addressable in any other way. For example, we have been able to integrate Air with VSM, which is something we don't touch at all, by using Evertz protocols. So, and then WDM, the WDM driver functionality has been added in Air 14, and it's essentially it means that anything that has a Windows driver model driver that has audio and video capabilities can be attached to Cinegy Air. So it means that all of those SDI cards that we don't support, in inverted commas, or no, don't support, you could quite theoretically use one if it has a WDM driver. What you won't be able to do with it is from within Air do any kind of changes. For example, when we work directly with the Arja driver, it means that we can select the channels we want and so on and so forth. You can't do that with a WDM driver. That just doesn't work that way. It will simply take the audio and video feed that's coming in and feed it into your system. And if it doesn't work, well, that's out of scope for us. If your Arja card gives you trouble, then by all means we'll help you with it. But if you've got some super cheap SDI board that had a WDM driver and it doesn't work properly, if you come to us, we'll probably tell you to buy something we support. Yep, but it does bring an element of flexibility, and it opens up the hardware that will connect into Air hugely. So enough talking. Let's go into the demos quite quickly here. So I want to talk, I'll be showing you Air PRO, well, Playout first and Encode, then Air PRO, very briefly Studio, Titler, and CG. So what I need to do now is, there we go, drop down, tuck this away. So to begin with, let's have a look at Air PRO. That's the Cinegy Playout. So we are familiar with the Playout dashboard, and as we see it here. Apologies for any grunge that the webinar software is doing to the video feeds, but I'm sure you'll understand that. So we can see here we have 3 Playout engines running at the minute, and I can show you some details of how these are configured to give you the picture of what is and isn't possible. So I'll open my configurator, just tuck this out of sight for now. Here I have my 3 engines configured. If I pop open the first one, then you will see I have the tick box on start, immediately switch to live ticked. If you are using linear playout, then you probably wouldn't want to tick that box. But if, on the other hand, you're doing encoding, which is what I'm doing here, you do want to tick that box. So it will then take your live input, and it gives you the possibility of setting your own aspect ratio, either from the signal itself or hard setting it. And then you can also set audio matrix, 8 matrices, etc., for your live input. Once you have that live input, if I were to tick these boxes off, I'm running encode. That's all there is to it. This box ticked, and these boxes empty, and we're running Cinegy encode. If I go to my playback area, we can see I'm running a shared RAM output, and I'm also running an RTP stream out. Gradually, as we are moving forward in our system, we are stopping talking about RTP, UDP, and we are starting to talk about just simply MPEG TS, because there's it's a much more straightforward way of summing it up. But right now it still says RTP UDP output on here. If I hit the change button, I can show you how that's configured. Here we have the broadcast mode. If you set the broadcast mode to unicast, you'll be able to unlock SRT, set all of the IPs to 0 to be transmitting, give yourself a port. For our purposes for video signals, we're usually using 9,000 plus, but you can set it to whatever you want. Here, excuse me, here we can put in an SRT passphrase that would be necessary at the other end to decode this using OpenSSL. Plenty tough enough to defeat even the most determined kiddies. And from here I can also, as I said before, scale on the fly. So it's going out. I can take this down to quarter, so I can take it down to 960 by 540. I could change the frame rate. I could do a whole bunch of, well, I can change the frame rate nota bene within the PAL range. I can't change it to 30, but everybody who knows Air already knows that. PAL or NTSC only. So yeah, I can enable a pre-process, resize the output, and then here we see the next novelty. If I click the teletext stream PID, the one that used to say OP47, it now identifies the page and etc. for teletext insertion. This is only of interest to those people who still have to work with teletext, and it will be documented clearly when the software finally is released. But for now, this is how you manage teletext code pages in your Air signal. And then here, the encoding for your output, I've got it set to an NVIDIA output. And yeah, I can tune this anywhere I like. And then finally, my audio setup. If I do select my audio, I can bring in the loudness control from, and I'll show you that in a second. But that's how the signal is set up. I'm not going to change anything on there because it's all set up and it's working. The audio issue, as I say, if I go here to audio and I go to my output, I can start up the audio output controller, and here's my loudness button. This is a separate license. It's if you are running Air and you want to see what it looks like and you tick that box, your engine won't run. So please don't do it unless you've got a license. We can supply evaluation licenses and permanent licenses because this remains linear acoustics software. It's their licenses that we're using. They're similar to the ones we use, but they're not the same. So you will need a license to be able to use this. And if you tick this box without a license, Air will not work. So don't. But if you do tick it and you have a license, then you can go to settings. And in the settings, then you have a whole bunch of ready set profiles and a bunch of things that you can tweak to set up your own. Linear acoustics say to us, setting up your own can be a minefield, and the existing profiles are good enough for pretty much any application. So take that warning on board. But here is the loudness control that is now built into Cinegy Air. Excuse me. So then in the playback area, I mentioned we have the shared RAM happening here. Here is the feedback codec set to Daniel, because that again takes effort off of the CPU. Here I can configure my RTP inputs. Here is another new feature. As you can see in my RTP input, I have an SRT stream with a regular URL. No IP address, but a regular URL, and it's our srt.cinegy.com URL, port 9000, because that's my number one signal coming in here. The wood and the rocks in the background is srt.cinegy.com. And where is srt.cinegy.com? It's in Nuremberg. Nuremberg is 1,000 kilometers from where I'm sitting right now. I'm taking my broadcast input from 1,000 kilometers away from via SRT. Note also that we have the multicast interface is set to all. That's because although we need 2 networks for RTP, we don't need 2 networks for SRT. Only one NIC is actually needed. And as a result, you don't need to pick. I have a 10 network physical and also a loopback for RTP streams, but I'm not using them here because I don't need to. SCSI-35 has been in here for a little while now, and for those of us who are moving forward, they will already be familiar with that. The SCSI-35 implementation is going to be extended. Right now it's just an on-off switch that works the same way as this would up here. Oh, the DTMF block. So again, this is something that's brand new. Your version of Air shouldn't have this yet unless you're running the beta. And if you're running the beta, I hope you're not doing it in production. Please don't. But this is the DTMF trigger signal, so you can send DTMF signals out to switches for advertising, etc. So that's Playout. So just to complete the picture, what I've got here is down here I have a multi-viewer running, and there are 2 things on this multi-viewer that I want to capture your attention with. The first one is top left, the flowers and the header and so on, the birds. This is shared RAM from Air going into Capture, and Capture is telling me that it's ready to record. You can see the ready TIG there. So I've my Playout input is coming into Air to Playout, and it's also going straight into Capture to be captured at the same time. And then down and right of there, the NHK with the red stripe there, the guy standing in the bushes, those are tomato bushes. So what are we looking at there? We're looking at the queued preview from Air Control. Yes, that's right. You can see what's queued in your Air engine without using Air Control anymore. Aha. Now this gives a great number of workflow possibilities. I've been talking about this feature coming with some customers, and they were like, when? So you can build your multi-viewer up to have not only what's going out, but also what's going out next. If that were a live stream, then that live stream would be there coming from the Air preview. This is a very big step. And by the way, I'm using multi-viewer because it's convenient, but that queued preview could be used just exactly the same way in VLC. Hush my mouth. So yeah, this is, I think, a major step forward. Again, part of how Air is moving forward into a new area of flexibility. Note that we will not be in any way abandoning our old model, Air Control with a physical server. We're going to be doing that as long as we do anything. But for future models that involve cloud, virtualization, etc., there may be other ways that you want to do things. And so since we have REST APIs, and now we have the possibility of using SRT internally, there are a whole bunch of different ways of getting stuff done. And I think this is a major leap forward for us right there. But this isn't a multi-viewer demo, so in fact I won't just tuck it away. I'll close it and then give me some calories back. Yes, I do. Okay, so then the Air Cinegy Air First off, the Air playlist editor. I'm popping this up very quickly. This is the playlist that's loaded in here. Is a playlist that we were working on with the Faroe Island television broadcaster, the KVF. And so this is the schedule for the day's Corona press releases, etc., built into here, but I don't have the files, so they're showing up in red. Here in our playlist, I have a program, I have blocks, and the blocks contain elements. I can add blocks in here, and I can say if I want to create a block, what am I doing? If I want to create a block, I create it here. I can then specify the block properties. Oops. And in the block properties, I can say, is it a normal one or is it an opt-out block? If it's an opt-out block, then I have various possibilities of switching that block out when the time comes for commercials or other content or whatever. So this is the playlist editor. Looks exactly the same as air control, except there is no air control here. Just a playlist, but there is also a previewer that will allow you to preview files just the same way as, oh, this one's only got audio on it. It will allow you to preview files just the same way as it does in Air. You have the file browser right here that allows you to pull all the content in as you need it. Put in your secondary events here, all the functions of air control without air control to allow you to build playlists, to QC content, because if you have something come in and you don't know what's going to work or not, throw it in here, and if it works, it works. So that's the playlist editor. I'm not going to save the, oh, I'm going to save it. How about that? Then that takes us onto air control itself. And here we see air control functioning, and that's interesting. What's happened to that signal? Nonetheless, here we have air control, the one that's, I have 3 channels open. These are live streams coming in. Let me just get this up for a second. Interesting. Air control. In air control itself, in the latest version, not so much has changed, but I mentioned already the color coding of items, the favorites, etc. Yeah, look, so I'm right up against it here. Let's go to my CPU. Yeah, I'm at 100% CPU. Well, what can I do about that? Well, there is something that I can do about that, and this is one of the coolest things in the new version of Air. I can go here, and I can say, create services for my engines. So I'm going to do that. So if we look right now at my CPU usage in Task Manager, yeah, I'm at 100%, and nearly a third of that is the dashboard. Dashboard is a beast, sad but true. So if I create services, then it should, there we go, it's created Air Engine services. So now I can bring back air control. Oops. I can bring back the dashboard now, and I can close it, and I can close it out of the taskbar, Bing, and exit. Now, it will interrupt your broadcast, it says, except it won't. See, those engines are now grayed out, but the services are still running. In fact, if I go here, I should be able to. Don't you love it when it's live? All right. Bottom line is the engines are still there, and the playout is still happening. It's just you can't see it from this interface anymore. But the crucial part of it was here, because if I go back now, you will see that my CPU usage has dropped by nearly half from the fact that I've stopped using the dashboard. So again, this is another means by which you can get the most out of any set of systems. If you're not going to run the dashboard, if you're going to control the engines in a different way, then you have much more resources available. Bring the dashboard back, then I need to, if I try to bring the dashboard back, by the way, it will complain. And I'll demonstrate how that works by going to it and so anybody out there howling because I ran it as administrator? You have to run it as administrator to get shared RAM to work. That's how things are. But so now if I come back here, you will see that I'm being told Playout engine has been inhibited from starting because the engines are configured to work as Windows services. Okay, never mind then. So I'll go back here and say remove those services. And those services are now gone. So I should now be able to do what I was about to do. Oh, missed it. Never mind. 1 second. There we are. It didn't do it before. It's done it now. So now this will be able to bring the dashboard back, and we'll be able to carry on working in the old style. And there it is, down in the corner, and I can just reopen it. And it's back, and my CPU goes shooting back up. So that's Air Engines and Services. I mean, this is just scratching the very surface of what's possible here. We have articles on Cinegy Open that get into it more, so for more information, go and have a look there. But this is effectively using the running engines and services is much better on resources, better security model, etc., etc. And it's something that you can look at for certain kinds of implementations. So time has caught up with us. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit Studio into this presentation, but I did want to show one last thing to finish with, and that's right here, and it's here. So we use Apache Guacamole for remote control of our systems. If we look here at this air control, and then we have a look at our dashboard, you will see that my SRT feed, that is my main input, is actually coming here from air control. And this is, I'm looking at air control that's running in Nuremberg. Okay, so I can be running air control remotely and drive a playout in the old-fashioned way simply by using Apache Guacamole. We don't sell it, but to their credit, neither do Apache. It's free. It's kind of ticklish to set up, but we got it working. So so Guacamole gives a great tool for extending and virtualizing and stuff like that. But and this isn't good bit. This isn't, all of this isn't the good bit. What's good bit is the bit I'm about to show you. Hold your breath. Oh, what's this? Yes, this is that chimera, that impossible thing. We are looking at air being viewed from an HTML interface. We got some interesting challenges going on there. Remember what I said in the presentation? This interface is experimental, and it is not ever intended to replace air control. The air control will continue, but for certain applications, let's say one thing I know that some of our customers have asked us about is customer provisioning, where they have a particular customer who would like to have some control over their own channel from the point of view of playout. So one of the things I can do here to demonstrate how this works, as long as it works, is if we look here, we have Alaska HD25 followed by updating sequence. Why don't I just swap those? Okay, I'll swap those. Now, if I go to my, oh, look, it happened. If I can do the same here, and now I'll go back to my, and look. So I can move stuff around in the HTML interface. I can monitor. I have all the information that's here. Not all of the functionality that will be available is built into it yet. And as you might be able to notice, we're getting into some race type stuff now with the video preview. That could just as easily be my my internet connection as anything else. But there we have it, Air in a web browser. And for the future, another way of getting the maximum flexibility out of your Cinegy Air system. So with that, I would like to thank you all very much for being here. And I would just like to say ding. I would say if there are any questions, you could try hand raising or stuff. I'm kind of new to this GoToWebinar stuff, and I don't know how it will work. If there are any questions, most of you know where to get me, or contact sales@cinegy.com for more information, or your account manager if you've already got one. And for the rest, thank you very much, and I look forward to the next one.